What is going on, guys? We are back at it again, and today we have Kent Chong. And as you can see from this first look at Kent throwing the bowling ball, he has a very, very solid physical game. So I just have a few little more kind of nitpicky items that I want to go over with you guys that I think will help Kent here become a little bit more consistent at the bottom and probably even add in some versatility as far as ball roll, ball speed, things like that. So let's get right into it. So first off, let's slow it down a little bit right here. And I want you guys to focus. Let me make that a little bit bigger. Let me focus your attention right there on Kent. So the first thing I notice is right in the push away. His thumb just kind of goes right down, right. I mean, it is as soon as his left hand comes off the ball, his thumb goes right down into the floor, and immediately Kent is losing leverage. So we want to just clean that up a little bit. We want to keep your hand underneath it, keep your fingers. A lot of the time, whenever we get into it, you'll see it here at the finish. If I could zoom, I wish I could zoom. But if you cut this bowling ball in half, Kent is probably, that's probably too high, but I mean, his fingers are more on top of the ball than they are on the bottom. And that is directly because of his starting position, where as soon as he drops the ball into the swing, his thumb goes down, immediately loses leverage, and can't get his hand back underneath it. He tries to right there as he's pulling the ball up into the swing. You can see right there where his head goes down, spine tilt goes towards the floor, and he's pulling the ball up into the swing to try to generate momentum. And honestly, even with these little small things, I mean, 95% of all bowlers do this, where they get the ball into the swing, thumb goes to the floor, and they lose leverage, and then they pull the ball up into the swing to generate momentum, and they think it's a lot more upper body than it is lower body. So first thing I would focus on, Kent, is just focus on feeling like your hand stays underneath the ball for the entirety of the swing. That is probably the most simple thing because that would directly influence what I'm talking about in the push away as the ball is coming up into the swing here, right there, where you can see everything start to kind of lean forward. Just focus on getting your hand underneath the ball throughout the entirety of the approach, throughout the entirety of the swing. That will just help you be in better position at the line, create more leverage, and you won't have to feel like you're pulling the ball up into the swing to generate momentum, which will then allow your feet to generate the momentum for you, which will then also loosen up your swing. It'll create more of a pendulum effect. So that is the first thing. And it's crazy to think that something as simple as just focusing on keeping your hand underneath the ball for the entirety of the approach would affect that much. But we've talked about it before in these videos where in the first two steps, if you're doing something not necessarily incorrectly or something that you could be doing better, it will affect the rest of your approach. So, that's a lot of what I focus on is in the first couple steps. So, that's the first thing. Focus on being underneath the ball throughout the entirety of the swing. Second thing I would focus on is, which I think will become easier once you work on part number one. But part number two would be spine tilt. You can see he's not in bad position by any means. But I would love to see Kent just a little bit taller. I mean, just a little bit, because again, that is going to allow him to use his legs, be in a better leverage position at the bottom, and keep his hand underneath the ball throughout the entirety of the swing, which will also help him create a more pendulum effect with his swing. But I mean, his footwork looks almost perfect. I mean, maybe, I mean, this is being extremely nitpicky now. Just maybe make step number one is good. Step number two, still good. And then it just kind of gets a little bit shorter there with between 3 and 4. But I mean, I think that overall, super, super solid. Last thing I want you guys to look at is right here at the bottom, because we don't see it very often. Most people are on the outside of the ball and also on top of it. But Kent here is more on the inside than what we're typically dealing with his hand, which is great. You know, like I said, we want you on the inside of the bowling ball. So he's on the inside, but again, cut that ball in half. His hand is on top of the ball, so he's losing leverage there. He's losing rev rate. He's losing ball speed. He's not efficiently converting his energy in his body to the bowling ball. And as you can see here, even though he was on the inside, because he's losing leverage, he feels like he needs to make the ball hook, and in turn his hand flies around the side of the bowling ball and again is losing leverage. And you can see that with his elbow as well. At the release, his elbow gets very, very quick, but does get to the outside. I mean, his elbow is pointing out over this way. But all in all, I mean, his hand is still in a very good position, all the way up until the release, where his hand just gets on the outside of it just a little bit. So Kent, I mean, like I said, very, very solid physical game, very minimal things that I think you should work on. And this all might be because you're a little bit younger guy and might not have the physical, like, forearm strength or maybe physical forearm awareness to stay underneath the ball, like what we're talking about here. But little recap, just focus on staying underneath the ball throughout the entirety of the swing. And what might help that is in your push away, feel like you're pushing up over a chair almost. Like, imagine there's a chair just sitting right in front of you and you need to push the ball forward and over that chair instead of down into the approach, like what we're seeing here, where you start the ball kind of hip level, and then the first motion, instead of out, is actually down like that. And I think that is what you're losing your leverage at. So that's one way that you could work on that. The other is just focusing on staying underneath the ball throughout the entirety of the swing and keeping it simple. Secondly, spine tilt. Just feel like you're standing a little bit taller throughout the approach, which is going to help you free up your swing. It's going to allow you to use your legs to generate your momentum instead of your upper body. Which, using your legs, I've said it before, is a much, much better way to generate ball speed and generate consistent ball speed shot to shot than using your upper body. Because using your upper body, one shot you may use a little bit more effort, throw a little bit firmer, and when you're bowling on house patterns, you don't see the effects of it that much. Sure, you see it on the scoring unit if you happen to have that capability with your center's scoring units. But on house patterns, you don't see the effects of it as drastically as you would on sport patterns, where you're throwing it at a different speed. So using your legs generates more consistent speed, and you can vary your speeds much more. Uh, how do I want to say this? You have the ability to throw it slower, throw it faster, much easier than you do using your upper body. And then the last thing goes along with number one. Just focus on staying, underneath the ball a little bit more at the bottom. Get your hands, get your fingers kind of, underneath that halfway mark of the ball. Other than that, Kent, I mean, it's like I said, it's very, very nitpicky. You have a very solid game, and I'm honestly very impressed. And thank you for trusting us to help you improve at bowling, and trusting our opinions to help you get better. So, Kent, thank you very much, and we will see you guys next time.